there's the new DreamWorks logo. How that boy got on that moon.
All the little balloons. Oh, we're supposed to introduce ourselves. We should do that first. Hi, I'm Conrad Vernon. I'm one of the directors of Shrek 2.
And I'm Kelly Asbury, another of the directors of Shrek 2. There were three of us. Our partner, Andrew Adamson, is actually in New Zealand while we're doing this, but
That's right. He's working
he was
on
the other
the
director.
film. I came on to the movie, I guess, in the very early stages. Just a few months after the first one was out, I guess they started to try and do this. And so they said, why don't you come back and be a director with Andrew? It was just Andrew and I at the time in the very beginning, and we just kind of started, hooking up the story, figuring out what Shrek and Fiona were going to do next. And then you came along not too long after.
Probably, actually, it was about a year, but I was finishing up. Yeah, I was finishing up Spirit, Stallion of the Cimarron, which I directed along with Lorna Cook. And I was finished with that, and Jeffrey Katzenberg said, we're going to be doing this movie in 2 different cities, and we need sort of a tag team situation worked out. So he asked me to join. And so I joined Conrad and Andrew, and we did it. Actually, it was a tag team.
Yes, it was. Because as Andrew was peeling off to go do his other film, Kelly and I kind of kept going up in Redwood City at PDI.
Yeah, Pacific
flying
Data.
back and forth. How many Southwest free flyer tickets did you get?
I got about 22 Southwest frequent flyer or Rapid Rewards tickets.
And that goes into what about?
About 85.
85
one-way flights. Yeah.
So we were back and forth a lot.
Yeah, Redwood City is where Pacific Data Images is, and they are the people who PDI DreamWorks are the people who make the Shrek movies. They made the movie Ants. They're working on a film called Madagascar right now.
What?
They are computer geniuses and very creative artists up there.
Made all the technical advances you see in this film. You probably see, it looks like the same movie, but they put a lot of new technical advances into the animation and the computers. And you can tell that I'm just a layman as far as the computer technical stuff goes, but they've made a lot of advances.
Conrad and I do know how to email, though, which
they taught us.
That's been helpful.
How to do that.
Yeah.
I called it laser mail before they set me straight.
Yeah, I called it computer mail thing.
You play a lot of roulette on the computer.
Yeah, I do know how to play
mail
roulette.
thing though. But there was a lot of technical advances made that were really amazing. The geniuses at PDI, they looked at the first one and said, how do we make this film, how do we up the ante on this entire film and still make it look like the same one? So what they did was they went in, they took all the subtleties of the film and made technical advances there. It was, in the lighting, you'll notice that the skin looks a little different. You've got more, different tones of color in the skin, and it's a little more translucent, the first few layers, so that it looks a little more like skin and not so much like rubber over a skeleton.
We also wanted this film to have a certain heightened reality to it. I mean, I watched this movie in its finished form, and it's so realistic, yet it's not realistic. We know it's animated characters, we know it's computer imagery, but there's something heightened about it that's really magical, and I think that has a lot to do with the appeal of the whole Shrek world, is this look they've devised.
Yeah, it's stuff that you might not notice. All the technical advances, stuff that you don't notice but feel. And if you're listening to this, you can kind of start watching it and looking for that kind of stuff. One of which is with the eyes. They used to just paint the irises and the pupils onto like the ping pong ball eyes and then pop them into their head. Now they made an iris, they made a lens, they made a pupil that dilates, and it's like a real working eye, so that when they look at each other, into each other's eyes here, you feel more of a connection between the characters. Boom, right there is one of them.
And also all the dust particles you see floating in those lights, everything, the mud on Shrek's face earlier, the bubbles in the mud when they were pooting in the little jacuzzi mud bath there, it all took a lot of research and development to get those to look right. The fur on Donkey here, it's amazing just the level of reality and complexity that they've been able to accomplish in this movie.
Pooting?
Yes, pooting. I didn't want to use the F word.
Yes, each dust particle was carved by hand by our technicians at PDI. Walt Dorn, the storyboard artist, to crack the scene. The scene that we did, we had like what, 4 or 5 different versions of this opening.
We had one version where they came home to a big party that was taking place, and there were home movies showing of their honeymoon. It was a completely different.
You came out of the honeymoon, and they were watching it on a big screen, and there was a big honeymoon party that they were having. And we went through version after version after version after version of that. We had that in there for, a couple of years.
It was actually the first sequence that I worked on the movie in editorial was the first versions of this, and it was just, it was never really a mess. It just, every time we would play it and every time we would screen it, it just seemed to slow everything down and not go anywhere.
And you'd just get like a, from people watching it, just like a weird little laugh, and we would never get exactly what we were looking for. I mean, it's a daunting task to go in and say, okay, how do you reintroduce all these characters from this huge first film and live up to the first film? So we put it out there, and Walt Dorn, storyboard artist, he's the one who kind of went in and
he kind of
solved this whole thing. He put one in. He was the one who did the fish gag, I think, the male gag, all that stuff.
Yeah, part of the problem also at the beginning was that it was just, here are all the characters you saw in the first movie, all in the first sequence.
Right off the bat, yeah.
Right. And
chaos. Let's open him with chaos.
Yeah.
And this guy used to be in a box. He used to be a wedding gift, too. And they would open the gift, and this guy was eating chicken, I think. He was eating Kentucky Fried Chicken in the box, and then he popped out and read this letter.
That's my voice, by the way. That's me doing that guy. I'm pretty proud of that.
Give him a little taste, Kelly. Go ahead.
Oh, Conrad. Don't be silly. It even looks like me, I think, except for the dark hair and the mustache. But I think the build is about right.
Yeah?
At least that's how I feel when I look in the mirror. Anyway, so here was another place where we had an opportunity here. We had to get some information across, and Mike Myers actually expressed a lot of concern at this part of the movie that Shrek and Fiona, that Shrek be really reluctant to go and really worried about how his in-laws were going to react to him.
Well,
in
what are
this
the
invitation.
stakes, basically?
Yeah, he wanted the stakes raised. And so this was a scene we had to really work on a lot to make sure it kept things moving, but got the information and the emotion across. And let you know that, it was important to Fiona that Shrek go meet her parents.
Well, and I'm assuming that everyone's seen the movie when they're listening to this, so...
They're watching the movie while they're listening to it, so of course they've seen the movie.
Well, I hope so.
Yeah.
So this chunk of what was it? There was a chunk of this fight that was actually in the fight in the bedroom at the castle that I think it was Andrew's idea to move back to move back to the front here.
Yeah, just give a taste of it and kind of break that up a little.
Actually, there's the fine, who said I want to be part of this family? You did when you married me. There's some fine print for you. That whole section in there on either side of that line used to be when they had that huge fight in Fiona's bedroom in the castle. And we moved it back here just to raise the stakes and really all of a sudden make it feel like, Shrek's got to, impress his in-laws now, and it's a big thing.
We had a little taste of the gingerbread men there a little earlier. That was, of course, you, Conrad, your starring role.
Yes, I am the gingerbread man.
Yes. I like to think of you as my little cookie.
Oh.
That little improv bit there.
Poppin' fresh?
Little improv bit there that Eddie Murphy did singing Rawhide, that was all him. I mean, we asked him to sing the song, and then he just did a rip on it that was hilarious, so we kept it in. Kept it in. Kept it in.
So we kept it in. Yeah, I'd done the, just to go back, I'd done the gingerbread man in the first one just off a pitch. Where I just, the storyboard artists, they take these ideas as scenes and then they just kind of riff on them like an improv comedian, kind of just writing down lines and drawing and just coming out with ideas constantly for what's supposed to happen in the scene. Kind of like what Walt did with that first sequence, and I did that with the Gingerbread Man on the first one. And I guess when you're doing storyboards, you do a lot of pitching, to try and sell the ideas that you come up with. So in order to sell those ideas, you do a lot of voices, you do a lot of sound effects, music, anything that you can do to sell the idea of the scene. And a lot of us, we do the voices ourselves for these characters.
It's scratch dialogue, and sometimes it just sticks. And when it works, there's no reason really to replace it. In fact, a lot of times we will have scratch dialogue that some of the story artists or local talent at the studio, as we call it, have done, and we do it in the temporary story reels. Then later we hire an actor to come and replace that, and it's not the same, and it doesn't work as well for some reason, or we've gotten used to it for some reason.
Well, the storyboard artist has usually written it and usually knows exactly how he wants it said and the timing of it. So
it's just more spontaneous.
Yeah, it's more spontaneous. So I was the Gingerbread Man, Cody was Pinocchio and the Three Pigs, and Chris Miller was actually the Magic Mirror, which we don't see that much in this version. He has a couple of great appearances, but in this particular one.
This whole Rodeo Drive rip is so great here. I mean, it's such a perfect interpretation of a medieval version of Rodeo Drive.
Yeah, I think the art department actually went down and stood on all the corners of every, cross street of Rodeo Drive, and took pictures of signs, and have literally reconstructed Rodeo Drive in the hotel. I think you and I were in, what hotel was that?
We were in the Regent Beverly Wilshire. And we looked out of a window, and it was exactly the same shot as that opening when they turned down Rodeo Drive. Some of this stuff was our first work that went into production, and we were seeing these scenes. And I think when I started seeing these final rendered scenes initially, I knew we had a special looking movie. These initial scenes and these crowd shots and that water and that fountain and that confetti and the shadows and the lighting, I knew we had something really amazing looking. And it is an amazing looking movie, and that's all because of the people at Pacific Data Images. They're just, they really know what they're doing.
Well, this is it.
This is the first stuff, as Kelly was saying, and it's the hardest stuff. It was some of the hardest stuff. We took longer on this whole sequence than we did on any other sequence in the film.
Yeah. But the little touches, the feathers, the confetti, the little puff of dust there when that bird hits the wall.
That's all separate layers that we have to go up and look up, and people have to create.
Yeah, effects animators have to animate those little particles, and they literally would ask us when the flurry of birds flew across the screen, they would say, "How many feathers do you want flying in the air when they fly through the screen? How many little residual feathers are left?" And we told them, "Well, try 5." And then they'd put 5 in there and say, "Okay, maybe 7."
Yeah, try 7. Yeah, can you make one of them really tiny? Just like stuff like that. Dave Smith was the board artist on this sequence. A lot of people.
John Stevenson also.
A lot of people put their hands on it. Yeah, like John Stevenson, he came up with some of the gags. I think he came up with the actual bird hitting the wall. Dave was the one that took, he was the one that said, okay, he was given the task of Shrek and Fiona are on the red carpet. They walk down the red carpet and meet the king. And a funny thing was, at one point, we were actually going to do a riff off of the Emperor's New Clothes. And Shrek's father-in-law, King Harold here, he was supposed to be nude through the first half of this entire movie. And we were only going to show him from the waist up, or we're going to have, people like holding flowers or, large turkeys or something to cover up
it was going to be
the
tastefully
obvious.
done.
Tastefully done. And Dave had come up with this whole red carpet sequence walking back and forth, and he the whole time Shrek was going, but he's naked. The guy is naked. I can't talk to a naked guy, you know. But we put the clothes on the king, and so Dave had this whole back and forth thing that was really a great little invention for that sequence. It kept it moving nicely.
This sequence was originally storyboarded by you, Conrad. This whole
The dinner
Shrek's
sequence.
dinner with his in-laws, and this really, I mean, this really is, you know, the real meet the parents scene in the movie, and we really wanted to do something different than we had seen before, but also something I think that
Everyone can relate to.
Yeah, you can relate to that first dinner with those in-laws and what that's like when everyone's uncomfortable. No one knows anyone else, and I think the addition of Donkey in here certainly twists things around. But I
had the
it's
flu
a great
the
sequence.
first time I met my in-laws, so it was.
I had a black eye when I met my in-laws. I really did. Anyway, we'll talk about my in-laws on some, another DVD. But
No,
this was a great sequence, and I think Conrad. I mean, it really is like you wrote it.
Yeah, thank you. It was, that hawk was Dave Smith's idea. He came in and I said, "What are we going to do to get into this scene?" I'd figured out of doing the cross dissolve behind Shrek, but Dave said, "And you should have a huge bird of prey about ready to attack Shrek right behind him the whole time." And I thought that was a great idea. So there's those menacing claws right behind him throughout this whole dinner.
The animation in this, the facial expressions, particularly I think on the king, are just marvelous. There's no other way to put it. I mean, they're so realistic and so expressive, and I think it's a great uncomfortable scene that builds to this mayhem that is really successful. And to get away, if you think about it, in an animated film, to have a really pretty lengthy eating scene is not something you would try very often. You wouldn't try that in live action very often.
Yeah, it's true. We used to have, instead of this, we used to have a surprise party that Shrek and Fiona walked into, this huge surprise party. But we found that we were just having to service too much in this one scene. We were having to see how the king and queen are together. We had to see how Fiona was with them. We had to see how they liked Shrek and how they were going to be towards him. But we also had all these we had the crowd people from the entire surrounding city that was there. We had to see how they acted, and then I think we actually had the fairy Godmother showing up in this scene,
this dinner,
raining Hershey's Kisses down on the entire crowd, and everyone was just going, "I can't keep track of what's going on." So,
what's great about the way this scene plays, though, is it really does set the ground rules among the characters. I mean, each of the characters in this scene is very clear, and it's established very well. You know what kind of parents Fiona has. You know the relationship that Shrek and the dad are going to have. You see Fiona's need for things to go right, and you see Donkey just sort of, being Donkey.
Yeah, well, you just kind of want to set the stage for the characters to kind of just play off each other instead of having any sort of outside influence. You just wanted to... It was just purely a character scene. That's why I loved doing it so much. It was really fun. And then Fiona... angry. Back to her
Beautiful
room.
animation.
This is beautiful animation, Mariko. And just beautiful lighting, beautiful set design.
We really wanted to establish that this was Fiona's old, girlhood bedroom, and she's she's nostalgic right now and sad, and things are not working out at all like she'd hoped. But look at the color in this.
It's
scene.
incredible.
It's really
incredible.
Just really beautifully done. The art direction, the lighting, everything.
Ting, ting, ting. This is funny. I like this animation here. She spins around.
I like the little tribute, sort of. We're getting a tribute to Disney films, to Cinderella, and we're also getting a tribute to The Wizard of Oz. It's so many film references in this movie that I can't even keep track of them. But I really like this, the way this introduction happens.
Look at you.
Yeah, this starts to get into the.
Grown up.
I think there was a
Who are you?
there was a big debate on how to handle the fairy godmother.
I'm your fairy
You know,
godmother.
if she was going to be like a psychiatrist. I mean, I think at one point we had her in a room in a chair, and you came in and laid down on a couch. And this couch had these mechanical arms that would come down and do your mascara and clean your teeth, whiten your teeth, and put lipstick on and do your hair while you were telling her all your problems. And I think that just got really, really complicated. And there was, you know, we went from a dinner scene straight into, you know, this Sopranos-esque psychiatrist scene, and it was just a lot of just people sitting around talking. So we just decided to take, you know, what Shrek usually does, take the fairy godmother and just turn her into the antithesis of what she's been in fairy tales all these years, and have one of these ridiculous magical numbers.
And we wanted her to come off as wacky and a bit eccentric. We didn't want to reveal the truth about her in this sequence. We wanted to make sure that you thought that she was there to help Fiona.
Yeah, well, she's being her manipulative best.
Yeah,
right here.
and then we find out, of course, later that there's more to this fairy godmother than meets the eye.
Yeah, mustached fail.
Look.
Those little pieces of furniture are geniusly designed.
Is geniusly a word?
Geniusly.
Ingenious.
Well, you know what? We have our own
Ingenious
dictionary.
thing. Yeah, that's true.
Smoothen was a word that we came up with.
Yeah, we did.
Smoothen the
Bigly.
animation.
Yeah, don't make that so as bigly as the other.
Yeah, as bigly.
That was my favorite.
And of course, geniusly. Geniusly designed. I mean, they couldn't put literal faces just because time constraints, because this is another one of those scenes that went through, you know, just complete rewrites and rewrites and reanimation and rewrites and rewrites and rewrites and rewrites until we were just like, oh, you know, because, you know, as I said earlier, we moved part of this fight to the very beginning, so that means we had to kind of do something with that missing chunk now. What happens there? And so it wasn't until the very, very end where we just started putting this into production. But I thought it was great how they had they used everything on a piece of furniture in order to make it look alive, and they actually got some sort of emotion out of it too.
I
That
like
little
this
chair that goes fine.
I like this next piece right here because this really plays up Fiona's hurt more than anything. I mean, she's angry, but her anger is definitely, you know, coming out of how hurt she is that her father and her husband aren't getting along, and that her husband's not working harder at this. And Shrek, of course, is completely confused and doesn't understand why she would not, I guess, totally be on his side at this point. And so she's mad at Dad and Shrek at this point in the story.
I like looking at the posters on the wall. Stonehenge.
I'm trying to talk about emotions. I'm trying to talk about the pain.
We've seen the film.
And you're talking about posters.
There's one called
See, that's
Chastity Belt back there. It's hilarious.
Yeah. Well,
It was
anyway,
the art department.
I care about Fiona, whether you do or not.
I don't. I do. Of course I do. How dare you say that?
That's a good laugh in the movie when Donkey makes fun of Shrek there. And then immediately, you know, there's this emotional moment, and we have Shrek now realizing, you know, that Fiona, this really means a lot to her. And I think this is the moment when he realizes he's got to do something.
And so he sighs, and we move up to the king.
I knew this would
The layout department did a great job with this entire melding these sequences together.
Yeah, this was another sequence I boarded, but you know, there was always this question as to where the balcony was in relationship to the queen. And of course, I tried as hard as I could to make it clear, but of course in boards it was just like this weird, you know, conglomeration of pencil lines and everything. So the layout department finally went to production, just completely cleared it up and hit it perfectly.
Yeah,
It was
I
great.
think it, you know,
What's in that bottle next to the queen, do you think?
Vodka.
Vodka? Castor oil?
But I think that what's great about this is it really does feel like the distance between the queen and the balcony, and with him closing the door, you know, it does play like she probably could. All this could happen, and she could not know about it.
Yeah, here's another little problem that you don't ever expect to come up. It's just like, how loud do you make the carriage. How loud do you make her saying, "Hello, Harold"? How loud, and what enough for him to hear it, but not the Queen.
Well, then you just have him close the door and it's solved.
Yeah, there you go.
And we are assuming that there are no windows in that room. So,
we make this a quick...
hey, it's movie magic. It's cinema.
Hello.
And here's the Godfather scene.
So,
This is a great.
You remember my sister?
Everyone thinks that that's me. One of those guys is based on me.
is that you?
It does look like you.
Gosh, it's been years. When did you get
Is
back?
that true?
Oh, about 5
Well, I'll let you
minutes ago.
decide. Leave you with that.
After I endured bliss.
I love the lighting in this. I love the feel of the limo that they captured, while it still sort of looks a little bit like a gypsy wagon at the same time. I mean, there's so many aspects of it that are.
Well, the details.
They're so cool.
You don't even really notice half the details they put in here, but that's what rounds out the world so well. Is they have detailed every single little piece of velvet, every tack that they put into the wall, all along the ceiling there, that big tapestry. They've got a bunch of different astrological signs. They really thought this whole thing out amazingly well. And
What's
really,
great about it is it's not so detailed. The lighting and the camera work, it's still very focused, and it's not a busy shot. It's not just full of things. If you look at it closely, it's there. If you need it, it's there. But nothing takes you away from what the scene is about.
Yeah, I mean, that was definitely always a consideration.
Your order, fair godmother. And
But
this comes with
Friar's
medieval-
Fat Boy. This is based on a Bob's Big Boy down in Toluca Lake, California. It
One of
is-
the oldest
Yeah,
Bob's
it
Big
is one of
Boys.
the oldest Bob's Big Boys. They still have the car hop place in back. They have, classic car shows every Friday, Saturday, and I always go there and
Believe me, Harold.
just for
it's
my
what's best. Not only for your daughter,
weekend hamburger.
but
Wow,
for
sounds
your
exciting.
kingdom.
Anyway,
It's a blast. But anyway, what I was trying to get to, jeez, you can see how well we've worked together all this time.
we're not working together anymore.
Thank God.
Anyway, all these particles and all that pink smoke, we really had trouble deciding what color should her smoke be. There's good smoke and there's bad smoke in this movie, and there's good bubbles and bad bubbles, and we wanted all these things to identify the fairy godmother in some way.
What? That's not true.
Oh, now he's undermining me. Okay, the poison apple, where all the fairy tale villains hang out.
This is one of the first clothing shots I looked at, and that cape was incredible.
The atmosphere in this is remarkable, and it was really hard to tell how this was going to look when it was in its rough animation form. We really had to wait to get the full effect of this, and it was a big leap of faith we had to take in a lot of cases. But it really, it paid off in spades. We love it. I mean, I love it. I don't know about you. I speak for both of us, but I don't know why I do that.
Because you think you're better than I am.
Well, so we'll talk about that after the tapes.
It was, I think is the Headless Horseman drinking milk?
I don't know what he's drinking, but I know it looks like he burps up birdseed. Well, I don't know, but
That's milk. That's something.
maybe it was milk. There's all sorts of
That is an opaque
potions back
liquid
there.
I saw come out of his neck. His large neck hole there.
Who's the guy?
He's not a guy, per se. He's ogre.
Hey, buddy. Let
There
me
was
clue you. There's only one fella.
all those little brews you see in the back, all those little signs in
Yeah.
the back. They were all,
Where can I find you?
designed and written by the art department.
And that's one of the things that makes this movie fun, is to watch it numerous times and catch all the stuff you missed the time before. Now, this is a scene that I really like, because we introduced the villain, or the dreaded ogre killer, Puss in Boots, here, but you don't ever see him, and we staged it in such a way that he always looks bigger than the king in this shot, so we don't give away, of course, what he really is a few sequences later. We wanted this to be very menacing, and we wanted it to seem like he was some sort of dark creature.
Yeah, we couldn't actually make him in the dark with cat proportions, because you could tell that his little boots and his little eyes were really close together. So we actually dislocated his head, if you saw it with the lights on, and moved it way back from the feet so that you could get that big size.
Talk about a leap of faith in production. We would watch
Yeah.
that, and we just said, look, I assume this is going to look right, because this is crazy.
Once you light it, I hope, the fact that his head isn't connected to his shoulders anymore will be covered up by the darkness. And it was, of course. There's the Sir Justin joke that everyone was just scandalous.
Yeah,
everyone was amazed that we put it in.
The press jumped on that more than anything else in the movie.
And you know what? I will say this right now, right here. We did not know they were going out when we put that in.
No, we did not. We had no idea. I don't follow Justin Timberlake and Cameron Diaz's personal lives, so we didn't know.
No. In fact, we came up with a bunch. Like I said, we had Britney. We had a Britney Spears thing called Chastity Belt. We had, Depeche Mode.
All these
medieval
posters.
version of that. So we came up with actually, In Sync, and I think it was INN Sync. And then we just said, well, let's go for Justin Timberlake and just put Sir Justin with a band behind him. And then we took the band out of the back and we just went with Sir Justin because we thought we liked that one the best.
We just wanted a quick read, is what it needed.
And then
Something
all
you
of a
could
sudden,
see it and identify.
they came out and said, we're going out. And we went, ooh, well, maybe we should run this past them. So we ran it past them, and they thought it was funny, and they said, fantastic, go for it.
Sleeping Beauty is
And it's one of the most memorable moments in the movie, as it turned out.
Yeah.
It's one of the things people ask me about the most. There's no question.
It's weird. You never know what you're going to be asked about the most on this. It's something that just kind of just flew by me. I thought it was funny and everything, but it's just a gag to me. Everyone's like, did you know? Oh, you had to have known. It was a huge...
Well, they just act like we did it on purpose.
Yeah.
I guess we should just start taking credit for being so clever. I don't know.
Sure.
Anyway.
Mrs. Fiona Charming. Mrs. Fiona
And this, of
Charming.
course, is our
Tribute to The Shining.
yeah.
Mrs. Fiona Charming.
All Jack and... Or what was it? All work and no play makes Jack a dull boy thing.
Yeah.
There's Chastity Belt.
Yeah. You can go back and look at that if you want.
Sorry.
For Conrad's sake. He's mentioned it 4 times in the last half hour.
I was just reading a scary book.
I was hoping you'd let me apologize.
All right, so this was the scene where the
Okay.
king sets up
I don't know what
Shrek.
came over me.
Yeah, and we had to make the king.
We went through a ton of different versions
Yeah,
of this,
we
too.
we had to make the king seem trustworthy enough for Shrek to fall for it because we didn't want Shrek to be stupid. And we also had to make it sure that Shrek was not completely trusting and a little bit suspicious, but he was going to go ahead and meet the king in the morning for Fiona's sake. And it took a lot of different ways to play this. One time we had them going down to the kitchen, and Shrek was going for a midnight stack, and the king was there, and the king made him. They made chocolate sundaes together, and Shrek made these gross sundaes, and it was just all this busy stuff, and trying to find ways to get this to work, and we really ended up going back to the original idea was that the king just comes and knocks on his door in the middle of the night, and Shrek accepts the invitation for Fiona's sake. Pretty simple, but you'd be amazed how you have to go full circle on some of this stuff to get it right. It's just part of the story process.
We passed that bush 3 times already.
There was one of the jokes where we didn't know what to do. If that should be in the film, if it should be taken out of the film.
The Shirley Bassey Bush.
The dreaded Shirley Bassey Bush joke. Everyone was like, it's not funny. It's hilarious. It's not funny. It's hilarious. People. But then again, every screening I go to, either the older the audience or the more obscure musical taste they have, you'll always hear a few people just howl, and the rest of them just kind of look confusingly around. I like those kind of jokes.
Well done here. I know it was
Donkey
kind of
purring.
a tender moment back there. But
What you think is donkey
What are you
purring?
talking about? I ain't
This was an
purring.
amazing.
What's next?
This was an amazing sequence to light and to put. I mean, every single one of those leaves and every single one of those ferns is all hand placed by the incredibly talented and anal retentive art director and production designer.
Come on, little kitty.
Yeah, it really, this is just, this entire sequence, which again, storyboarded originally by you, Conrad. I mean, every aspect of it, from the concept and all the great comedy, to the look of it, to the effects, to the animation, everything about this is just, every duck is in a row. It's just absolutely great.
And it was one of those sequences that was, it was a rarity where you just kind of keep getting better. It just keeps getting plussed every part of the process it goes through. You go through storyboard, and then you go into the camera section of it, then you go into the animation and the effects, and then the lighting, and every single time something was added to it, the voice acting, it just kept getting better and better and tighter and tighter, and it was amazing to see this particular sequence come together.
And what I think is real important about this sequence, just as an audience member, when you watch this film, everything before this is set up and it's interesting, and you establish characters and you establish the setting of the movie and what's about to happen. From this point forward in the film, this sequence kicks in the comedy and the action, and it really never loses pace after this. This really is the scene where it all begins. This is where Shrek finds out that his father-in-law has tried to do away with him and hired an assassin to get rid of him. And it's when Shrek realizes, okay, my options are out. This is not going well. Maybe I made a mistake here, marrying Fiona, and he knows he has to do something. And it's a key moment in the movie, and it's really where the movie takes flight for me.
This is where it all hits the fan, so to speak.
I wouldn't change if I could.
And this was a scene or a shot where the water, we never really knew what it was going to look like until it was finalized, and it was all reversed in the animation because it's a reflection. We really had to take another leap of faith. That's one of the things about CG animation I had to get used to, is sometimes you just have to say, well, I suppose the technicians know what they're doing here, and I just have to stop and say, okay, the animation looks good, and you cross your fingers, and then you go in a lighting session and you see this and you can't believe it.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it was easier and easier to take leaps of faith towards the end.
Yeah.
Towards the end, I was just going, yeah, if you guys like it, it's fine with me.
It really is true. We'd go to approval sessions in the lighting department, and I had nothing to say.
You'd just sit there and you'd watch it and you just go, whoa. And
it was just such a from one day to the next, you'd see a scene in rough animation and they looked like clay puppets.
And then all of a sudden it was this, what you see here, and you're like, oh.
Yeah.
Now this is a joke, this little answering machine joke. People giggled and people laughed at it and thought it was funny and everything. And then when we took this film to Cannes, the entire audience erupted and howled and cheered at that joke, and I was like, what?
Well, the French love answering machine jokes.
That's right, Jerry Lewis and answering machine jokes.
That's just all there is to it. Go figure.
Shrek?
And then we had to put another song. Ain't no stopping us now.
This moment, and I give you credit, Conrad, this is the comedy highlight of the film. There's nothing funnier in this movie, and there's nothing anyone talks about more, except maybe the Justin Timberlake poster. This is the comic moment that is the classic. It's going to be talked about for years. It's your rosebud sequence, Conrad.
Aw, I'll just let you talk from now on.
Well, you should anyway.
Okay.
Shrek.
Oh, there's the little puppy.
Yes, a little Bichon Free.
Weird puppy. We couldn't get rid of the weird puppy.
Yeah.
I remember before he had his fur on, he had these little hands, and he looked like a little monkey dog walking across the bed there, because he was the clay puppet before they actually put fur on him and everything.
He looked like a Mexican hairless dog.
Yeah, and I wanted him.
Strange.
I wanted a dog just like that so bad. I thought it'd be great to have a little monkey Mexican hairless dog. Oh,
with a bow floating over his head.
If you're watching this widescreen, that guy climbing the ladder to nowhere in the background, I think he falls off of it.
Yeah, we just panned past him, so that's a little tidbit for you DVD lovers out there. If you reverse it right now, you'll see a man fall off a ladder.
If it's widescreen.
If it's widescreen, yeah. We're
Otherwise,
watching it in
pan away.
3:3, so we don't even have the joy of it. What we see here.
Exquisite.
What?
That would be the door.
Oh, I like, and then the man back there polishing the wall. We always like that too.
See, and in these movies, no one does it. You can't take anything for granted. You can't take any backgrounds. You can't take any dust. You can't take anything that would normally happen in a live-action film for granted. So you have to go back and you've got to make all that stuff up. So we had, like, they said you have like 10 to 12 people in the background doing stuff. Obviously, we didn't want them take away from the what's going on in the foreground here, but we couldn't just have them standing there. So the animators went in and just had one guy polishing a tree, one guy climbing on a ladder to nowhere, and one guy, you know, they were pretty funny to watch, actually, a lot of the times.
Maybe you should do the same.
And this is where the king admonishes. This is the big moment for Fiona.
But it's
Do I
also
stay
where the
with
king has also put the burden on Fiona rather than on himself, and he's the one that he thinks, they all think that, you know, Shrek's done away with, at least the king does. And he's putting his guilt off on his own daughter. So it's a scene where the king really is chicken in this part of the movie.
And I have to say one thing about Puss in Boots here, and this laugh that he gives right here is hilarious. It's you know, Antonio Banderas did such an right there, that laugh. He did such an amazing job giving Puss in Boots this great character. I mean, we had a great cast. I mean,
Yeah.
throughout this whole movie, it's like a dream cast to be able to work with these people. Puss in Boots, the way Antonio came up with that, you know, he didn't even come up with a voice, he just came up with this great character. It was like he knew exactly what we were doing, that we were satirizing Zorro to a certain extent, and he loved that idea and knew exactly where to take it. He came in and just knew exactly how to play it, and it totally adds to the character. I mean, it makes the character. Up until now, we were just using this kind of, you know, I think I was doing the scratch temporary dialogue to it, and I was doing a voice of a Spanish character designer I knew at DreamWorks, and it was just this kind of caricatured, you know, character until Antonio came in and just made this real character. It was really fantastic what he did.
How many times did you say character?
Character. He's a character of a character.
I think, okay, now it's the
Anyway, back to the film.
the James Bond potion lab of the fairy godmother. We wanted her to really feel suddenly like she's almost a Bond villain in this part of the movie, and I think the art department really can be thanked for pulling that off, because she really does come off as having a sinister master plan.
And just a hint of lust.
Excuse me. Sorry to barge in like this, but
What in Grimm's name are you doing here?
Now, if you watch, here's something I like to point out about Puss in Boots. You know, a lot of times Puss in Boots is just in the scene. He doesn't have a lot to do. He is comic relief a lot of times. He does help Shrek find things, and he does help Shrek when he needs him. But a lot of times Puss in Boots just has to stand there and watch everyone. And we had a real task, you know, talking with the animators and trying to find what can he be doing while he's sitting up there or just standing there. And if you watch his little side movements, the animation is just great. They really did a great job of just having him looking. But he does little things with his hands and the tilt of his body that are just fantastic.
A lot of stuff you don't realize, and you can look for it at the end of this scene, is when they're all walking out, Puss in Boots goes for his sword. I think he goes for his sword like twice in this.
Yeah, he's always ready.
that's okay.
He's about to go for his sword at the fairy godmother, and he's about to go to that little guy that just walked in with the cart.
Just go.
What I really actually
Right there.
enjoy, yeah, what I enjoy about the whole movie is when you watch the little side things that are thrown in. You know, it's really,
They had that in one too.
yeah,
I mean,
just
it's like one of those. I always describe it as one of those Sergio Aragonés drawings from Mad Magazine.
Yeah.
You know, like the Woodstock, and you just look at, you know, these thousands of people, and you'd say, oh, look at that guy. Oh, look what
he's
they're
doing.
Look what they're doing. Oh, this is connected to that over there. And I think that's kind of the idea we're going for in this film, where we could just pack it with, you know, just as many different gags and things as we could.
and anachronisms and really the Mad Magazine, to me, if you take the world of Mad Magazine and then the movie Young Frankenstein, the kind of the Mel Brooks sensibility. You've got a lot of the roots of what I think Shrek is all about, the whole Shrek world.
Whoa, now. Listen, if we need an expert on licking ourselves, we'll give you a call. Shrek, this is a bad idea.
Look, make yourself useful and go keep watch. Puss, do you think you could get to those on top?
No problema, boss. In one of my 9 lives, I was the great cat burglar of Santiago de Compostela.
Shrek, are you off your nut?
Donkey, keep watch.
Keep watch. Yeah, I'm gonna keep watch. I'm gonna watch that wicked witch come down here and whammy zammy a whirl of hurt all up your backside. I'm gonna laugh too when she do. I'm gonna be giggling to myself.
What do you see?
Look at the lighting in this.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Fantastic. And you know, I really notice in this sequence, especially the little beard that we gave Puss in Boots, that little Spanish beard at the bottom. We had a real task getting Puss's eyes to really have that Antonio Banderas feel to them.
Yeah, it was
I
a
mean,
lot of
we
work.
went back into the character design over and over and over and over again.
I think at one point I sat with Guillaume, our production designer, and we sat with pencils, colored pencils, and on photographs, on color Xeroxes of Puss in Boots' face, we did different versions of how those eyebrows could work, and it took a lot of time to get it right. But I think they pulled it off amazingly, and I think he's a classic character now. I think he's going to be seen for years and years.
Well, that's what a lot of people say, and that none of these characters really look like any of the actors at all. But everyone says that they do, and the thing is if you just looked at a picture of these characters, you wouldn't say, "Oh my God, that looks like Mike Myers," or "That looks like Antonio Banderas." But the animators, they watch the actors, reading their lines in the recording studio, and they take these little things that the actors do with their face and their bodies, their mannerisms, and they literally put it straight into the character here. So, in an eerie sense, you get, Mike Myers coming out of Shrek, and Eddie Murphy coming out of Donkey, and Antonio Banderas, and all the actors coming out of their characters.
When good animation is done, that's what should happen. I mean, you know, on The Jungle Book by Disney, when you see Phil Harris, you see Phil Harris in Baloo the Bear.
This was an effects challenge, to say the least. Just making all this magic flow through the dungeon, and all these birds fly around, and actually having it look really, really natural.
And they each have their own separate flight pattern. I mean, it's really it's a credit to the animators and the effects department and the character TDs. Just amazing.
This is the fairy godmother's voice. I'll talk about the fairy godmother's voice for a minute. This voice is something that I think we always had in mind. I mean, Jennifer Saunders from Absolutely Fabulous playing the fairy godmother was just, it was just like an obvious,
it's a perfect
hole-in-one for us. It's amazing the job she did on this character, and it was one of those few times when it turned out exactly the way we wanted, but the character of the fairy godmother completely turned out better than we ever imagined. We knew the voice would fit, but the way that the character turned out was just incredible because of what Jennifer brought.
Well, I think it's also what's good about Jennifer Saunders is she really has subtleties that she throws in that you just, that's the sign of a really good actress is they throw in things you wouldn't have thought of, little nuances in the voice that really give the character dimension just in the way she speaks.
Absolutely.
That's a tall order.
And she was a brand new character. Mike and Eddie, they always, they would always, and that's why Shrek and Donkey are so good, but they'd always come up with lines, right off the top of their head, new riffs, new improv lines, and it would just, it rounds out a character because that stuff just comes out spontaneously, and you can feel that, when the character's acting, and that all of a sudden this thing just comes out of their mouth. It's surprising. The more spontaneous, the better, and that's also what Jennifer brought to her character. Just a lot of, breast enchantment and weight loss hex. Those were a couple of little spells that the fairy godmother has, and I love that stuff.
I look any different?
You still look like an ass to me. Maybe it doesn't
And they're
work.
all taking the potion.
I just love even the little effervescent bubbles that are coming out of the potion here. I mean, they're so beautifully done.
There's no going back.
Those little touches just add to the movie.
There was another scene that was actually done in a different location as well. This was going to be in a really deep forest, and they were going to be crossing rivers and everything. I think Donkey was actually singing "Happy Birthday" to Shrek.
Yeah,
really annoyingly throughout this entire scene.
having them in a big open field also makes them feel very vulnerable.
Yeah,
you know, they just got out of this big action sequence, and it feels a little bit dangerous. You know, that they're in this sort of open clearing.
Now we can't pass that little section without saying there's one of the
poot jokes.
The gratuitive poot jokes. Is gratuitive a word?
Gratuitive? I don't think so. Gratuitous.
I love playing with language.
Yeah, it loves playing with you too.
Gratuitive. I think that's a new word that I'm going to start using.
It is.
It's
very
a gratuitive
intuitive
poot joke.
Now this wet fur is virtually impossible, and PDI did it. And no one does it better. I don't care what anyone says. Fur and textures and skin and organic characters, no one does it better than PDI. That's just all there is to it.
Couldn't agree more. I mean, there's no like toy-like quality to them. That's what's amazing. You can, you can feel the textures just by looking at it.
And you can feel the cold skin and the droplets on Shrek's face here. I mean, that's real looking, and it works. Look at Donkey's fur there. I mean, it's absolutely convincing in every way. And you'll see Puss in Boots. And look at him, he's all wet. He looks like a wet cat. That's not easy. That is really a challenge.
It'll be better in the morning.
And Puss in Boots putting his hat on is a challenge, and they did it.
Yeah.
This is hard stuff.
The sun will come out tomorrow, and then this reference coming up here.
Yes.
Which is there. That is from Sanford and Son.
Yes.
Red Fox, and not a lot of people know that. And that got such a big laugh that it stepped on Puss's "Hey boss, let's shave him" line.
Right.
We had to split those up just a little bit. But there was another line that I loved that Donkey was going to say when he passed out, which was "Lucky Charms, the San Francisco treat."
Yes.
I loved that. I don't know why. I thought it was hilarious.
You know, art direction-wise and cinematography-wise, I love also that this scene with Fiona and her parents is very warm, and it's lit by fire. And in the scene where they're in the barn, it's very cold, and it's raining, and there's water. I mean, it's a nice juxtaposition of the two different places.
Fiona! Look at the shadows of the rain on her.
Yeah, and the way the rain hits the stones, all of that was just perfected by everybody at PDI. A lot of people don't catch that Puss in Boots is pulling his hat out from under Shrek because he was falling on him.
That was another one of those jokes that people just howled at that we never expected. Every time the cat went, "Rawr."
Yeah.
When someone landed on the cat and you heard that, "Rawr," everyone just, "Oh."
Off-screen cat noises are funny.
I know.
Period.
Now, we've worked on this a long time. How do we show that potion affects Fiona as well as Shrek? I mean, blue flash. I think there was one point. There was one point because Donkey changes into a noble steed, as you'll see here in a moment. But everyone asked, we asked ourselves, and everyone asked us afterwards, who does Dragon change into?
Right.
And I always, at one point we did have her change into a Pegasus, a big pink horsey with wings. And I still think off-screen somewhere, she's a Pegasus right now, wondering what the heck's going on, flying around. And then she changes back into a dragon before the end of the movie. So that's a little side story that you can think of that's not in this film.
Shrek.
Nice chest hair on Shrek there.
From Europe.
It's really good. It's trimmed.
I got a
Little manscaping, I think they call it.
Well, get in line.
Have you ladies seen my donkey?
Who are you calling?
These three.
That's
That's Jill, I'll say right now, that fetched a pail of water for Shrek.
From Jack and Jill. And this stuff of Donkey as a horse, a lot of credit has to go to James Baxter, who on the film Spirit had learned so much about animating an equestrian that wait, that would be wrong. He animated an equine. An equestrian would be the rider. Okay. Equine animation was perfected by James Baxter on Spirit, and therefore he was able to come onto this film and apply that knowledge, and that's why Donkey moves so well as a horse.
Midnight? Why is it all...
This was boarded by Chris Miller, our head of story, who's also the voice of the Magic Mirror. Incredibly funny. And this was another scene that went through... I could pretty much say every scene that we did went through about 20 changes, but there were certain scenes that I'm picking out here that just were real. They were a real conundrum as far as how to get through the story in the right way
and give the information clearly. That's a big part. Is disseminate all this information clearly and still keep things moving.
Yeah, and naturally, and not have it sound like they're saying, here's what happened, and now this is going to happen. How are we going to handle this, donkey? You know, it was really hard to do that. Keep it entertaining.
Ready?
Ready.
Now, this actually comes from the Puss in Boots fairy tale.
Yeah. This whole, he steals the clothes of a nobleman for his master.
Yes, so that he can pretend to be a prince or a king.
Oh, you poor creature.
And there's another Kelly Asbury voice.
Yes, I got all the important characters in the movie.
You poor creature. Is there anything I can do?
Thank you, Conrad. You should have done it.
I've perfected my imitation of you. Now that joke right there with the tiny clothes and everything, you've seen that joke 1,000 times, but for some reason, Donkey and Puss laughing at it made me laugh really hard. I mean,
and the audience laughs too. I mean, that happens in the first film too, where Donkey
and Shrek just start cracking
up at something Fiona says, and
it's just I don't know. I listen to a lot of Eddie Murphy laugh takes, where he just sits there and he just goes off and he laughs for like 5 minutes, and it is hilarious. You cannot keep from laughing listening to he just goes nuts, and it's really funny. Entering, this is Changes. I'm glad we got that song. I totally love David Bowie. Did a great cover of it. And they're off.
Oh, tell Princess Fiona her husband, Sir Shrek.
Okay, those horses in the back. I look at all the background horses and everything, and it's incredible. Some people actually asked me if we had put real horses, like somehow laid them into the movie.
Well, they look that real.
They have this slight quality to them, like when you just saw Donkey and Shrek gallop up, the horses reacted.
Yeah.
But normally, normal horses wouldn't do that. That's like an example of that heightened reality that I love. Now this, we used to have a different background here, and at one point, Fiona ran out of the fireplace.
Yeah, there was a whole different
And I was just
set.
like, well, just put some flames on her back, and it'll be fine.
This was another sequence that took a lot of different iterations to get it right, to make it clear that Fiona and Shrek had missed each other, and that the fairy godmother had tricked Shrek, and that Fiona then got the information about the potion from Donkey. So all of this, there's a lot of comedy in it, but it's all very important story things that do get put across.
Yeah, there's about 5 or 6 things going on at the same time right now. And, trying to do all this clearly.
It's whenever you have a bait and switch part of a film and a story, it's difficult to pull off without it being very complicated and hard to follow. And this was taken very slowly, and it took a lot of fine-tuning to get this right, but I think it's really crystal clear what's going on.
How does Fiona find out about what's happened without making it feel like we're just retelling the story again?
We didn't want to retell it again, and we wanted to give the audience credit, frankly, for having followed the story. We hope they did, to where it's not something we have to restate over and over and over. That there's a potion, and Shrek is now handsome, and there's a bait and switch that's happened. We wanted it to be crystal clear and simple, and I think we did it. I think we did.
I was so hoping you'd approve.
Who are you?
So this was really difficult in the acting of the different characters, as to, the king is catching on.
Yeah.
The queen doesn't know what's going on.
The king is covering up. Then the king goes along with it because he's afraid not to.
Yeah, and he doesn't know what's going on in the beginning either, but he starts to get an idea.
He just knows something is amiss, and he knows the fairy godmother's behind it. But he's too afraid of her to step forward at this point. The king really is an interesting character in the movie because in many ways he does some pretty diabolical things, but he comes...
He never comes off as a baddie. He never comes off as the evil one.
Yeah, and he is sort of a puppet to the fairy godmother, and he redeems himself at the end, of course. But it's a tricky thing with a character like that because you could have made the king completely unlikable, and at the end you sort of sympathize with his situation.
And you're an ogre.
He was between a rock and a hard place.
Well, even the fairy godmother is handled in a really, really nice way, I thought, just because she's not the typical mustache-twirling bad guy. Like right here, she could easily take advantage of having won.
Yeah.
But she's confident enough in herself and the fact that she's won to just say, why don't you just go away? Very softly to him, and I think that probably hurts even more.
And I think one of the reasons the king succeeds as not being a villain is that we do create sympathy for him. And we don't ever create sympathy for the fairy godmother. She is, in that way, she is our central villain. Our central villain to the story.
I love that little hook thing we put in at the end. Bing, bing, bing.
Here you go, boys.
Just leave them.
And I love, this sequence I love just because of all the little details and the acting that we put in, where we just have Puss staring straight ahead, depressed. There's not a lot of, moaning and groaning and rolling the eyes and everything. It's just that straight look that he has. And then on Shrek, we went in and just kind of pulled his hair down into his eyes a little bit and made it look like he'd been rubbing his head for a long time. And, it's just, this is a real nice moody scene here.
By angels.
He sounds dreamy.
Leave the bottle, Doris.
This isn't making me feel any better.
Great animation here by Tim Chung, one of our
Really subtle animation.
supervisors. He's
And Fiona gets the man
really
she's
great.
always
I
dreamed
mean,
of. Everybody wins.
this actually used to be done in a clothing store.
Yes, it did. This entire piece took place in like a Rodeo Drive clothing store, and it was sort of a comedy of errors, and it was a lot more wacky than what we ended up with. And it really came down to a choice of tone, I think, more than anything else. It just wasn't the time for a wacky sequence.
Well, we've had all this craziness with Shrek taking the potion, turning into, a handsome prince, and turning Fiona back and galloping up, and no, all this stuff's happening, and just to stop and have a nice. I think Andrew was the one who just said we need something just to bring it down a little bit, and he suggested this bar scene, and at first we were like, gee, a bar scene again? Okay, well let's give it a try, and of course it worked beautifully. So
yeah, it was a lot of work to get it right, and not the trouble with a scene like this, and it was the same problem when it was in the store, is it's a very expositional part of the movie, and it's a place where you really have to. You walk a fine line of giving too much verbal information and just confusing the audience and muddying things up with all this information that doesn't sound natural. But with a lot of fine-tuning, it really did turn out. It turned out fine. We
great,
really,
yeah.
Pulled it together, and it.
And the first time you hear yourself, the fairy godmother tells the king about this potion that he's supposed to give Fiona, and Shrek overhears all this outside. You kind of think to yourself, oh, well,
that's all very convenient.
Yeah,
isn't
that's
it?
all, yeah, exactly.
But that a lot of movies do this.
It all depends on how you do it and how fresh you are with the idea.
It's really in the way in which you do it. It's not the exact information.
And putting the drunk driving test on the headless horseman there.
Yeah,
Always helps.
exactly. Throw in those little bits of comedy and you're safe. And here's the red carpet sequence.
As the cream of the crop pours out of them like Miss Muffet's curds and whey.
Everyone who's anyone has turned out to honor Princess Fiona and Prince Shrek, and oh my, the outfits look gorgeous. Look, Hansel and Gretel. What the heck are the crumbs for? And right behind them, Tom
And one of Kelly's favorite noises right here. That little,
Wow. Yeah.
Wow!
I just love when little Tom Thumb is swept into the little bissel.
Oh, who's this?
The little bissel.
Who's this? Who is this? Oh, it's the one. It's the only. It's the fairy godmother.
Hello, far, far away. Yeah, whoop, whoop. May all your endings be happy
And I love the music that Harry did in this part, with the nice jazzy music he threw in there for the fairy godmother.
Yeah,
the
that made
score
me
in this
laugh.
film. I mean, it's
incredible.
fantastic.
I mean, we use a lot of temp tracks. You know, in the beginnings of making one of these films, we use a lot of temp tracks. We use a lot of music from other films just to get the mood down. And so you're living with that for so long. When you finally hear the actual score, it blows you away. I mean, it feels like you're watching the movie for the first time. When I first heard this score that Harry did, I was like, you get those big, wow, that's amazing sounding.
I have to talk to Princess Fiona.
This is really the most satirical Mad Magazine moment in the whole film. And they pulled it off. The video effect they put in here, everything about it, this catnip joke gets a huge laugh. This was something that was pulled off. It's funny, but the visuals are what sell this piece.
Oh yeah, those video lines that they put across. I mean, it's incredible. When we saw this for the first time, I mean, again, we were just watching the clay puppet style, and when we saw it lit with the video things, I mean, it was like you just crack up. You've seen it 1,000 times, but just the video lines will make you laugh, and it's amazing.
Darling? I thought I might find you here. How about a nice hot cup of tea before the ball?
I'm not going.
But the whole kingdom's turned out to celebrate your marriage.
There's just one problem. That's not my husband. I mean, look at him.
Yes, he is a bit different, but people change for the ones they love. You'd be surprised how much I changed for your mother.
Change? He's completely lost his mind.
Great Fiona animation. I mean, I definitely look at the human characters in this film, and I just see just such amazing improvements that the technical team made. And they look the same, and they feel like the same characters, but just the hair and the skin, and the way they look at each other, it's really great.
The steam on the coffee is great. You know, it reacts to her nostrils blowing it a little bit when she blows. I mean, it's incredible.
All right, this scene right here is it's insane. I mean, we went through it a bunch of times. We had old men. Puss and Donkey were not supposed to be in this scene in the beginning. They were supposed to be out trying to get Shrek out of jail, and we had two old men in there, with the long beards and the long white hair. But, once we put, Donkey and Puss in jail with Shrek, it just came to life.
It really did. And then the characters rescuing him. And I would say that overall, the comments I've gotten, this sequence is probably second only to the introduction of Puss in Boots as being the one that people talk about the most as a sequence in the film.
And the biggest laugh in the entire film is in this sequence, I'd say.
Right up there with Puss in Boots' eyes. It's hard to choose between the two.
Yeah.
But I would say that definitely what's coming up when you learn the secret of Pinocchio and you get that shot of Gingerbread Man exposing it.
I guess they're different kinds of laughs.
Yeah.
I mean, Puss in
really
Boots is
are
one
huge.
kind of laugh, because I was in an audience full of kids, and when they saw the thong joke, there was that joyful screaming shock.
Yes.
From there, they're like,
well, it's an underwear joke, all wrapped into a thong joke, into a cross-dressing joke. What can you say? It's a crazy moment that you don't expect, and it's one of those things that you just hope works, and it worked.
Yeah. I mean, we went through it. We were actually going to cut that out for so many times. We were just like, The women's underwear joke does not work. It does not work. Does not work. But this is a testament to getting sick of jokes over years and years and years. If someone tells you the same joke for 2 years, you're not gonna laugh at one point.
It's one of the hard parts about making animated features. Is you have to live with this stuff and watch it hundreds of times and trust that it's going to remain as funny as it was the first time.
And
you
remember
saw
it, how funny you thought it was the first time you saw it, and hopefully other people think the same thing. Yeah. But it goes through numerous board artists. All these sequences do, and Rob Porter actually got this sequence and added the thong.
Yeah.
It used to just be you didn't see what Pinocchio was wearing. You just said, "I'm wearing ladies' underwear," and it didn't grow. And then he said, "You must be," "I am not," and it grew. And that was it. And then someone said, "What kind?" "The thong."
Yeah, and that's Rob Porter's gag. He threw it in, and it's as big a moment as anything else in the movie.
It's a hoot. Here's where we see the actual Muffin Man.
Yes. That's what he looks like.
And there's Drury Lane. It's pretty creepy. Drury Lane's a very creepy place.
This was another part of the movie that I always loved from the minute I came on the film. I thought it was great to have a giant gingerbread man. And it sort of was in and it was out, and we thought it worked and it didn't work, and it seemed so out of place. And we really realized, it's great that Shrek comes up with this device to break into the castle. It's resourceful, and it's funny, and it's a tribute to the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man. It's a tribute to
King Kong, Godzilla.
Yeah.
That's where I was really looking more at Godzilla when I saw this. I was just like going, this is those old movies, those old Godzilla movies. And how many times were we going to cut this out? I mean, there were so many debates, but every time we said, it just doesn't do anything for the story. It just isn't pushing it forward. We just need to get rid of it and get to the ball. We just say, you can't do that. It's too good a device. It's like...
It's just insane. And it takes things to it takes things up a notch. That's all it was for, and it works.
What is with you?
Yeah, well, I mean, the whole, intercutting this between the ball and outside, with the gingerbread man going in. This is something Andrew worked on a long time, is trying to get this to cut back and forth a lot. And
it's great.
It's great. It really builds wonderfully.
Mike Andrews, our editor.
Our genius editor who's...
supervising editor. He was he worked a long time on this whole movie. So.
Oh, yeah. I mean, if there's anyone who has the bad end of the stick, so to speak, about all these movies, it's the editor, because he's got to take what everyone in the entire production is working on and somehow fit it into this cohesive film that you're watching right here. I mean,
he's on the movie from the very beginning until the very bitter end, through the mix.
I think a week before we hit the theaters, he was still making tweaks. 1 week.
Yeah. He's probably still doing stuff on this movie somewhere.
Yeah, and you probably won't notice it, but it'll make it a better film.
I think the editor of Bambi is probably still working on Bambi somewhere. I think it's just the editor's life.
But it's like timing all this stuff down to the frame.
Yeah. And it is about frames when it gets down to this last leg. I mean, it's about the action, and there are frames cut out up until, the sound mix.
All these effects are really amazing. I mean, how you go to the effects team and you say, we want a burning gumdrop. Well, what the heck does that look like? It's up to them to figure it out. It's great.
Do gumdrops burn? I don't even know. I'll have to try burning a gumdrop and see. Then maybe they burned a real gumdrop to find out. I don't know.
They do that stuff.
Yeah.
Great reaction shot. King.
I like the little particles of sugar on the giant gingerbread man that you can see. The little cracks in the cooked dough. It's just, in this steam. Look at this steam. It looks like we're in Starbucks.
This scene was done by Mike Mitchell a long time ago. This is one of the first things, and this is why, I guess that's just the fate of a great scene done in the beginning that doesn't necessarily, completely have to be in the story. It's just, it's in and out and in and out and in and out through the whole making of the film. But it was just so funny. Mike did a great job at that. And it pretty much stayed through the whole thing. Look at all the crumbs falling off of his hand.
Yeah. And this
little red
hot
icing.
milk
lips quivering.
And how we had to make sure we found a way to make sure Shrek and little Gingy were not hit by the hot milk. And then this leap that Gingy...
That was put in at the last minute.
Yeah, this leap that Gingy makes to save his creation is so self-sacrificing and noble.
Someone cried at that. There was someone behind me crying that Gingy leapt off of Shrek's hand and just went, "No, my Mongo," and I was like going, "Oh, they love little Gingy."
All of this action stuff is just so good.
Come on!
I mean, it's so fun, and you care about these characters.
If you go back and look at the little hooray that they make, it goes by so quick, but each character we gave a different...
Yeah.
I think Pinocchio, his body spins and his head stays still, and the mice, they're looking in different directions.
Oh yeah, we did that every chance we got.
Yeah, exactly.
I love this animation of him slipping down that hallway on that marble floor. And then, of course, here's where the big payoff with Puss in Boots is, when he finally repays his debt.
Yeah, we didn't have this for the longest time. We just had Puss in Boots.
Pay my debt.
You know, just kind of, he was kind of out until the end.
But
and
he
said,
uses this device.
Yeah, how does he repay his debt to Shrek? I am indebted to you until I have saved your life as you have spared me mine.
And it turns out we also get to see that he actually is a good swordsman.
Little Yoda-esque moment. It's funny because every time Shrek breaks in and stops the song, every time I've seen this, I've always been like totally into the song. And then all of a sudden he stops it and I'm like, oh.
We didn't get to hear the end of it. That's actually Jennifer Saunders singing that too.
Yes, fantastic voice.
Great job.
Leave well enough alone.
No!
And you've retrofitted the Hollywood Bowl with bubbles. That fairy godmother feel. Now, there was a weird... This was a great joke there. I
the
love
laugh always
that.
comes.
I mean, you have to have that. But you know, we used to have the weirdest stuff in this fight here, where the fairy godmother and Shrek were fighting, and she was enchanting food, like turkeys with sharp teeth and
all
cupcakes.
the food was coming to life, and Shrek was fighting food.
Yeah, and that just got really weird. And does he eat the food to defeat it, or does he cut it up? And then we just finally said, what are we doing here? This is really strange. And it was kind of gross. So,
Kiss her now!
instead we went for this little toss around, which was really good between the characters.
And this, of course, is the moment when you think all is lost. Fiona is going to now be cast under the spell of Prince Charming and the love potion.
And a lot of times people were saying, but I didn't know whether she took the potion or not. And I was like, well, good.
Yeah,
you're not supposed to know.
Yeah, we don't want it to be clear when she drank that tea.
Harold!
And we still, until the king actually admits what's going on here, and he double-crossed the fairy godmother. And that's really when the king redeems himself.
Mummy?
And we realize, okay, he's on Shrek's side now.
Told you, ogres don't
And of course, then he sacrifices himself when the fairy godmother tries to kill Shrek once and for all. And here he is.
Now this used to be a costume ball as well.
Yeah.
This was a costume ball, and the king was supposed to be dressed up like the magic mirror, and that's what was supposed to reflect. Once we decided not to do a costume ball, I mean, they had people that were dressed up like Shrek, like Ogre Shrek, and once we decided not to do a costume ball, we were like, well, how are we going to reflect this? And we decided to put armor on him, but we were like, well, is that going to look convenient again? And it's amazing how, things don't look as convenient as you think they do. I mean, I'm not saying that you shouldn't think about that.
Yeah, but it is all in the handling of it. You can... if you're careful about how you do this stuff, you can make it play. And I think that him wearing this royal armor to this ball worked.
Yeah,
it didn't need
it's
to be
totally
a costume.
fine. We just were worried that it just seemed convenient because we knew it was going to happen. Yeah. So we were just like, well, we're only doing it for that.
Well, when it was a costume ball, he was the magic mirror.
Yeah.
And it was just very strange.
I love this.
I'm sorry, Lillian.
This soap operatic soliloquy by a frog.
And the animation's beautiful.
Yeah, and John Cleese, delivered it perfectly.
warts and all.
Now that was another just cry moment.
Midnight. Fiona, is this what you want?
The girl I was seeing this with at the premiere, she, as soon as that frog came out and started saying, Fiona, my darling, you know, the tears just started streaming down her face. It was great. I actually, the first time I saw this completed, because there was a short time on the mix where they just needed to work. And that was the last time we were going to see it until the premiere.
Yeah.
And when I saw this for the first time at the premiere, I even welled up a little at the Puss line. You're gonna make me cry.
I married.
It was great.
I think this is such nice animation in here, and real subtle stuff going on between Shrek and Fiona.
Donkey's bottom lip there.
Yeah, and Donkey's
It's
fighting
so
back
good.
tears.
That's just the scene that just hits me every time because it's so great and so funny.
And I love this effect. And, you know, from here on out, I mean, the movie really, the payoff and the ending is really nice, and I think that a lot of that goes to the art department and the effects department for just really staging and layout, you know, for staging a really nice scene.
And this actually wasn't in the movie for a while. I think, I forgot which board artist just threw this in. I think it might have been Rob Porter. Just threw that in where Donkey was just half changed.
Yeah. I think
and we said, well, you know, let's watch Donkey change back in the.
Lorna Cook actually boarded a lot of this too. A lot of this ending.
she boarded all the kiss and.
She's not credited in the movie, and that's too bad. But she really did. This whole ending with the frog and everything was from some boards by her originally.
Now, where were we?
And then I think this was Mike Andrews that said, "Let's bring back that. Now where were we?" It's like little thoughts like that. Just make a big difference.
I like the King's little goatee too.
Oh, on the frog.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, and of course, here's La Vida Loca.
Yeah, so when Jeffrey mentioned this song, I remember it just popped into his head. He spun around in his chair and he goes, "We got to use La Vida Loca here," and everybody went, "What?"
Yeah, we just couldn't. You know, it was so out of context.
We were like, "La Vida Loca, what?"
I think it was the using Puss in Boots and his Spanish.
Sure. And just having some upbeat song like that. And then we started listening to the lyrics.
Yeah.
And there was like, new kicks and candle wax, and we were like, okay, let's see if we can, take this into Shrek's world just a little bit.
But it works. People love it. I mean,
As soon as they start hearing, the in the beginning of the song, and everyone's just kind of watching. They're seeing Puss dance, they see Donkey dance, and all of a sudden Donkey starts going, "She's in to sue Puss." Everyone just starts cracking up.
I also love that Puss in Boots has this 50s microphone just for no reason. He just has it because he needed it.
Yeah. And there was a real quick dog pee joke.
Yeah.
But he's okay because he's back doing the little robotic dog on the stage there.
There's Pinocchio. There's Pinocchio doing the worm.
Hey, donkey, that's Spanish.
And there you have it.
That's it. This credit sequence here. In the first movie, we put everyone's names up front. In the beginning, with like the mud splashing and the maggots in the mud and all that kind of stuff. And we were thinking about doing something like that for this film. And then we said, well, let's do something a little more subtle. And as you're going down that beam of light, all those particles come together and make the names. But that just, to me, I mean, I'll just speak personally. To me, that was too moody and too sophisticated for me. And so it was Andrew and Mike. They were together, and they decided to do this credit sequence where you just have shots of the film at the end, and you just put the name up there. I thought that was great because it kept the energy going, and you're still with the song. You were still watching pieces of the movie that you loved. They picked out some great stuff there, and I thought it was a great way to handle it. So now here's the really interesting part of this whole thing: is watching the credits and listening to us talk over them.
Yes, and of course there's a surprise coming up, so we can.
That's true. I mean, there's
stall for a little while
about this surprise. I'll just start talking about it now. We were thinking about how are we going to get Dragon into this movie, because Dragon has not made an appearance yet. I mean, she made an appearance in the old version when they are all having a party. And then we got rid of that, and we just wanted to simplify it between Shrek, Fiona, and Donkey. And then all of a sudden, Dragon wasn't in the movie anymore. And we thought, well, maybe we'll be able to get away with it. And then we said, no, she has to be in the movie, so we boarded out that whole scene with her and her babies. But then it got taken out again.
Right.
And then it got put back in again. Then it got taken out again. And I think there was a lot of, when we test screened the movie, there was a lot of audience members going, where's Dragon? Why don't we see Dragon? And we just said,
well, she was missing.
Okay, we're going to come back during the credits and show Donkey. And we boarded this thing out, I think, like 10 times.
Thanks, compadre.
And I love that, Puss in Boots is ready to go party, go to the clubs.
They're friends now.
Yeah.
They like each other.
They've become friends.
But there she is. And, it's funny, every time I've seen this a couple times in the theater because I want to see the audience reactions. And they all start walking out of the theater. And I have to hold myself back from saying, wait, don't leave. Don't leave. But, what's great is they get about halfway down the stairs towards the exit, and this comes on, and everyone stops, and they just watch it from the stairway and from standing right in front of the screen. And then people who didn't see it, people who rushed out of the theater, they heard about it, and they're going, oh, now I got to go back and see it again, which is perfectly all right with us.
Well, it's been a pleasure, Conrad.
Yeah. Sure. Fantastic. So, is that it? Okay, because I don't know if I can sit here and watch the credits and talk over them.
I explain, flying to the sun without a plane when you're here. Don't you worry about me, babe, 'cause I'm right here for you to say. Inspire me, you're a flower and I'm a bee. I need you. All this you do for free. Give me hope and I can see you're so true. Don't you worry about me, babe. You're strange and I'm strange. Don't want you to change, no way. Don't you worry about me, babe. Don't you worry about me. 'Cause I'm right here for you to say. Won't you take me to Funky Town? Won't you take me to
She said, I've gotta be honest, you're wasting your time if you're fishing around here. And I said, you must be mistaken, I'm not fooling, this feeling is real. She said, you've gotta be crazy, what do you take me for? Some kind of easy mark. You've got wits, you've got looks, you've got passion, but I swear that you got me all wrong, all wrong, all wrong. But you got me. I'll be true, I'll be useful, I'll be cavalier, I'll be yours, my dear, and I'll belong to you if you just let me through. This is easy as lovers go, so don't complicate it by hesitating. And this is wonderful as loving goes. This is tailor-made. What's the sense in waiting? And I said, I gotta be honest, I've been waiting for you all of my life. For so long I thought I was asylum bound, but just seeing you makes me think twice. You've got wits, you've got looks, you've got passion, but are you brave enough to leave with me tonight? Tonight, tonight, you've got me. I'll be true, I'll be useful, I'll be cavalier, I'll be yours, my dear, and I'll belong to you if you just let me through. This is easy as lovers go, so don't complicate it by hesitating. And this is wonderful as loving goes. This is tailor-made. What's the sense in waiting?